My name is Natalie Morganson. I'm 34 years old, and I never thought I'd be standing outside Rivercrest Lodge in Cedar Falls, Iowa, holding a gift bag and getting told by my own father that I wasn't on the guest list for my mother's 60th birthday. He didn't yell, he didn't need to. Just a flick of his eyes down the clipboard in his hand, a glance that said, "You don't belong here." Then he actually said it. "This party is for people who make time for family." The cold wind off the Cedar River felt like a slap. I tried not to look around at the other guests, some of whom were definitely watching. Lauren's voice, too sweet, too loud, cut across the entryway. "We talked about this, Natalie." I hadn't driven all the way from the Des Moines airport, hadn't flown first class from San Diego, hadn't spent $3,000 on a brooch and spa package just to be told I wasn't welcome. But I was. I was being told exactly that. Before I can continue my story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Our family always looked perfect from the outside. Big house on the hill, golden retriever, Christmas letters with curated photos, and a list of achievements like it was a resume. But what no one saw was the quiet sorting that happened inside. Lauren, the crown jewel, Zach, the lovable baby, and me, neither problem nor pride, just there. I wasn't always invisible. When I was 7, I came home in tears because Melissa Robbins didn't invite me to her birthday party. My dad barely looked up from the paper. "You'll live," he said. But my mom, Carolyn, sat with me at the kitchen table. We made party hats out of construction paper baked sugar cookies with extra sprinkles, and she let me choose the music Ace of Base on loop. That night we danced in our socks and she said, "You're special in your own way, Nat. Never forget that." I didn't, not even now. It was Mom who framed my third-place science fair ribbon. Lauren had trophies so many that Dad built her a custom shelf in the living room. But Mom took my little green ribbon and quietly tucked it beside a photo of me in braces. It stayed there for 3 days before Dad pulled it down. "Clutters the wall," he'd muttered. That hurt. But what healed it was finding the ribbon years later, folded carefully inside Mom's jewelry drawer. So when I saw the Facebook post last week, Lauren's banner graphic with Carolyn Morganson, 60 years of grace splashed across soft florals, I thought maybe it was just a mistake. Maybe my name had slipped through the cracks. I called Mom. She sounded surprised, distant. "Lauren said you were too busy with work," she murmured. But then she brightened. "Of course you should come. I'd love to see you." That was all I needed to book the flight. But now I was here. And Dad was blocking the door. I looked past him, caught a glimpse of the cake through the window, pale lavender with sugared violets. Mom's favorite, the scent of early spring flowers mixed with the bitterness rising in my throat. I took a deep breath and held out the gift bag. "Give this to her," I said. "It's a brooch. Emerald. Like the one she lost when Grandma died." My father took it without a word. My sister turned away, smirking, and I walked back to the rental car, trying not to shake. I sat behind the wheel for a full minute before the knock came. It was Evan, Lauren's boyfriend. Brown jacket, nervous smile. "Ms. Morganson," he said. "Wait, can I talk to you for a second?" Evan slid into the passenger seat before I could even say yes. He glanced over his shoulder like someone might be watching, then looked straight at me. "I work at AetherTech," he said. "San Diego office, data science team." It took me a second to place him. There were hundreds of employees across departments. I'd approved his lateral transfer from the Des Moines office 8 months ago. "You're Evan Ramirez," I said slowly. "You transferred in Q3. "Yeah," he exhaled. "And I've been dating Lauren for a little over a year." Of all the men in all the cities, Lauren had picked someone who ended up in my orbit. The universe has a wicked sense of humor. I didn't know until recently he said that she was your sister. The name didn't click at first. You never talk about your family at work. And she didn't exactly talk about you glowingly. I gave a dry laugh. She never has. He shifted. I didn't say anything back there because I didn't want to escalate things. But what your dad and Lauren did, that wasn't spontaneous. They planned for you to show up. They talked about what to do. Your mom wasn't part of it. That confirmation landed like a punch. I'd suspected it, but now it was fact. I leaned back in the seat, head against the rest. Outside, the sun had dipped below the tree line, casting long gold shadows on the gravel lot. My reflection in the windshield looked tired, hollowed. I thought of Lauren's words over the years, little needles coated in sugar. "You're so lucky you got away. We're the ones who have to deal with the parents now." Not everyone can just run to California and call it ambition. Growing up, she was always first. First to walk, first to win, first to be praised. I wasn't jealous, not exactly. I just felt extra. Zach was the youngest, always rescued. Lauren was the oldest, always admired. I was the space between them. A pause in the music, a placeholder. At 13, Lauren was on the cover of the local paper for placing first in a statewide math contest. That same week, I got my first period and tried to tell Mom in the car after school, but she was too busy taking a call from the paper about Lauren's feature interview. I stuffed the pads I bought with babysitting money into the back of my closet and said nothing. Those small moments add up. They form a pattern that feels invisible until something huge like this birthday party makes it undeniable. "I shouldn't be telling you this," Evan said quietly. "But Lauren told your mom you sent your regrets weeks ago. Said work was too demanding." "That's a lie," I whispered. "I called her directly. I said I'd come." "I know," he said. "Lauren's been managing your mom's medications appointments, everything. She's controlling the narrative." And that's when something inside me snapped. Not in a loud, explosive way, but something subtle and final. I couldn't just fly home and let this be the story. I wasn't going to let them write me out. Not this time. I turned to Evan. "I'm going back in." His eyes widened. "Through the front." "No," I said. "Through the side. You're going to walk in with me, and you're going to introduce me properly." He hesitated. "Lauren's going to lose it." I smiled tight and calm. "Let her." And just like that, we were out of the car. As we approached the side path toward the back patio, my heart began to pound, not in fear, but in clarity. I wasn't the placeholder anymore. We slipped in through the side entrance near the catering tent. The party was in full swing, clinking glasses, bursts of polite laughter, a playlist of jazz standards humming just beneath the surface. I scanned the crowd for my mother. For a moment, I saw only shadows, people who'd known me since braces and awkward school dances, now gathered in a room where I wasn't supposed to exist. Evan stepped forward, voice level and deliberate. "Everyone, I'd like to introduce Natalie Morganson, Carolyn's daughter." Then, with perfect timing, and my VP at AetherTech San Diego. Silence. You could hear the ice settling in someone's glass. Then slowly heads turned. My mother stood from the head table. She wore a lavender wrap dress that softened her silver hair and a confused expression that melted into something stunned, then something else entirely. "Joy." "Natalie," she said, pushing back her chair. "You came." I crossed the room, aware of every stare, every hush. "Of course I did," I said. "It's your 60th. I wouldn't miss it." She opened her arms. We hugged. I could feel the tension still buzzing across the room, but for one moment, there was only us. Mother and daughter reunited under a storm of secrets. Lauren appeared beside her, like a wraith in heels, voice syrupy. "Mom, we didn't know she was coming," she said. "I called you," I interrupted. "You said I should come." My mother looked from Lauren to me. "You said she was too busy," she said to my sister. "You told me she sent her regrets." I thought she had Lauren murmured, eyes hard on mine. And that was the moment I saw it, not just the lie, but the fear. Lauren was slipping. Control was fracturing, and everyone could see it. I didn't come to destroy her. I didn't come for drama. But I wasn't leaving my truth outside in the car. We stepped away from the crowd and into a quiet alcove by the cake table. "I need to ask you something," I said to Mom. "Why did you believe I wouldn't show up?" She hesitated. "Because it's been years. Because Lauren said." I nodded. "And what do you believe right now?" She blinked. "I believe I've missed you. And I didn't know how much until this moment." Something fragile flickered in her eyes, remorse maybe. Grief for all the lost time. I could feel the years between us stretching out like rubber bands, thin, taut, aching to snap. And suddenly, I was back in that kitchen, watching her hang my third-place science ribbon in a silver frame. It sat next to Lauren's gold medals for a day and a half before disappearing. Years later, while looking for wrapping paper in the guest room, I found it tucked behind her perfume box, still folded, still safe. She remembered. She always had. "You kept it," I whispered now. "What?" "The ribbon. Science fair. I saw it." Her eyes softened. Of course I kept it. I wasn't allowed to hang it, but I kept it. Tears sprang to my eyes unexpectedly. Not because she'd remembered, but because I'd forgotten that she did. That drawer wasn't just about a ribbon. It was proof of quiet love, of the ways she'd tried even when the family rules didn't let her. I squeezed her hand. You should know Dad turned me away at the door. What? He told me I wasn't on the guest list. He made a scene. She looked over her shoulder toward the party, and I knew this wasn't over. But it was finally beginning. After the hug, after the quiet promises, I found myself standing alone by the dessert table, watching my family orbit one another like planets locked in an old gravitational pull. Same people, same choreography. But everything had changed. I used to think distance could fix things, that if I just built a life far enough away from Cedar Falls, I could outrun the weight of being the leftover child. So I left. First to Boston College, then to San Diego, where AetherTech recruited me as a junior strategist. I rented a tiny studio with a broken heater and a view of an alley. I worked late, asked questions, stayed out of office politics. Within 5 years, I was leading international product expansion. By 32, I was heading a global division. To my family, that made me successful but suspicious. When I called home, Dad would say, still out there in California, like I was stationed on Mars. Lauren once quipped, "You working for NASA now," when I told her I was flying to Singapore for a vendor summit. They didn't understand the world I'd built, but worse, they didn't want to. It wasn't just the career, it was the freedom. The friends I chose, the city that felt alive, the air that smelled like eucalyptus and Pacific salt. In San Diego, I wasn't someone's daughter or sister. I was Natalie Morganson, VP of Global Strategy. I was enough on my own. But every time I tried to share that with my family, inviting them to visit, sending holiday packages with little pieces of my life, Lauren intercepted the narrative. Natalie's just busy. She's always got some launch or merger happening. What she left out were the invitations I sent, the FaceTime calls that went unanswered, the emails Mom never saw. Zach didn't bother engaging much. He floated between music gigs and bar shifts, responding to my texts with emojis and the occasional LOL. When I visited last year for a friend's wedding in Des Moines, he canceled dinner last minute because he forgot he had plans with Megan. I never asked who Megan was. Still, I kept showing up. Holidays, birthdays, baby showers, until the Thanksgiving 2 years ago. We were seated around the table at Dad's house. Lauren was slicing her famous apple tart. I'd brought a vegan stuffing from a San Diego recipe blog that nobody touched. She leaned over as I poured sparkling water. "You really think this makes up for it?" I blinked. Makes up for what? She smiled without warmth. Flying in for one dinner, sending candles and coffee subscriptions. That's not family. I said, trying to keep my tone calm. "I've invited you all to San Diego." "Exactly," she hissed. "You invite. Like we're tourists in your curated life. You think you're better than us because you escaped." I remember setting down my glass slowly. "I didn't escape," I said. "I built something. You could have too." Her jaw clenched. "You called Mom unsupportive last Christmas." I said I felt unsupported. That's not the same. But it didn't matter. Lauren had already decided who I was, and everyone else had followed. The table had gone quiet after that exchange. Mom's hands trembled as she passed the cranberries. Dad asked me if I was seeing anyone, tone sharp, like it was a test. I left early that night, called a Lyft to the airport, and took the red-eye home. No one called after. That was the last time I was home until today. That Thanksgiving night never really ended. It just froze mid-sentence. Every silence that followed became a continuation of it. I'd flown home thinking maybe things would shift, that maybe Mom would ask more than how's work, that Lauren would stop treating me like an exhibit, that maybe Zach would look up from his phone long enough to notice I was in the room. Instead, what I got was a quiet war. No shouting, just careful jabs wrapped in civility. Dad talking about the value of real work, like my corporate achievements were imaginary. Lauren casually mentioning her latest board position while pretending she didn't remember my job title. By dessert, I had reached my edge. I didn't just disappear into some California fantasy I'd said setting down my fork. I worked hard. I made sacrifices. I'm not the one who stayed behind and pretended that made me morally superior. The room froze. My mother stared at me like I'd just broken something sacred. My father's lips thinned into a line. And Lauren leaned back, folded her hands neatly in her lap, and said, "I think you should go." So I did. That night, I sat in the Des Moines terminal, surrounded by the sound of vending machines and flight announcements. I watched families reuniting after short trips, hugging like they'd been apart for decades. No one texted me to see if I got home safely. No one reached out over the following days. For 3 months, I didn't hear a single word from my family, not even Mom. The same woman who used to pack handwritten notes in my lunchbox when I was nervous about a presentation. The same woman who once drove 3 hours round trip to bring me my retainer after I forgot it on a middle school field trip. Silence is its own kind of violence. But the absence taught me something. That trying to force my way back into a role I never chose, the daughter who stays quiet and grateful for crumbs, was exhausting and futile. So I let go? Or at least I tried. I buried myself in work. AetherTech was expanding into Southeast Asia, and I was tapped to lead the strategic rollout. It was intense, but it gave me purpose. It gave me something to focus on that didn't involve emotional landmines. Then, 3 weeks ago, on a random Thursday night, I was scrolling through Facebook while reviewing vendor compliance reports. That's when I saw it, Lauren's event post, Natalie Morganson, 60 Years of Grace. The banner was flawless, soft violet florals, a picture of Mom from the church gala last spring, dozens of likes, comments from old family friends and church members, and a guest list that scrolled for pages. No mention of me, not one. At first, I thought it was an oversight. I refreshed the page, checked the privacy settings. But no, it was public, and I was missing. I clicked through the going list feeling a weird kind of numb panic. Her old college roommate from Michigan was coming. A second cousin I hadn't seen since 2008 was tagged in the comments. Even Melissa Robbins, the same girl who didn't invite me to her 7th birthday party, had RSVP'd. But not me. I sat in my office high above the San Diego skyline, bathed in blue light from my screen, and felt like I was 7 again, uninvited, unacknowledged, unimportant. And that's when I picked up the phone and called my mother. "Mom," I said when she picked up. Her voice was thin with surprise. "Natalie, is everything okay?" That was our pattern now. Calls meant emergencies, never connection. "I saw the event page for your birthday," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. A pause. "Oh," that she murmured, as if it were a bake sale and not a carefully coordinated, guest list-only milestone party. "I didn't get an invitation." Silence. "Then Lauren said you'd be too busy, that you had that big work trip coming up, the Singapore thing." "That's next month," I said evenly. "Of course I'd make time for your birthday." Her voice warmed, but it was tentative. "Well, it would be wonderful to see you. Of course you should come." I hung up a few minutes later with the party details, date, venue, dress code, but also with something else. A suspicion. Mom hadn't known? She sounded genuinely surprised to hear I hadn't been invited, and that meant Lauren had made a decision on my behalf. Again. By morning, I'd booked a $100 flight, first class, because if I was walking into a potential war zone, I might as well be comfortable getting there. I took Friday off work and texted Rachel, my executive assistant. "Family thing. Can you reschedule the Asia vendor meetings?" Her response was instant. "Rachel, you taking time off for family? Are you okay or secretly dying? Me very funny. I'll owe you a latte." The planning was obsessive, maybe even desperate. I spent hours finding a gift, something sentimental, irrefutable proof that I remembered her. I found an emerald brooch from a vintage shop in La Jolla, nearly identical to the one Mom lost during Grandma Florence's estate move. I paired it with a prepaid spa package at the resort she mentioned during one of our rare calls. Total cost, $2,945. I told myself it wasn't about money, it was about meaning, showing up with proof that I still saw her even from 900 miles away. The outfit was equally calculated, sapphire blue dress, structured but soft with a waistline that implied confidence without arrogance. Silver heels. The pearl earrings Mom gave me for my college graduation. I rehearsed potential conversations in the mirror like a press junket. "So great to see you." Smile not too eager. "The company's still growing, thank you." Modest, not braggy. "I'm sorry about Thanksgiving, even though I wasn't the one who started it." The night before my flight, Lauren sent a text. "Lauren heard you're coming. Just don't make this weekend about you." I stared at those words the entire Uber ride to the airport. It wasn't a warning, it was a reminder of the story she'd been telling everyone about me. Selfish, cold, career-obsessed. I didn't reply. During the 3-hour flight, I alternated between scanning quarterly reports and rereading old texts from Mom, trying to track where things began unraveling. 1 year ago, 2 longers. Dr. Levian, my therapist, once said, "Your family doesn't just trigger you, they cast you. You're not being treated as Natalie. You're being treated as the role they assigned you." I was ready to recast myself. I checked into the Riverfront Inn downtown, deliberately not staying at the house I'd grown up in. The thought of sleeping beneath the old cheerleading trophies and hand-me-down furniture made my chest tighten. In the room, I hung up my dress, laid out the brooch and spa package, and stood by the window watching the Iowa night roll in like a slow tide. Tomorrow, I would walk into a party I wasn't supposed to be at. But tonight, I let myself feel everything. The ache, the anger, the absurdity. I was done shrinking. The sun was just beginning to climb when I pulled into the lot at Rivercrest Lodge the next morning. The venue, with its weathered barnwood siding and tall windows overlooking the Cedar River, looked like something out of a bridal magazine. Early guests were already trickling in shiny cars, familiar license plates, and silhouettes I hadn't seen in a decade. I parked near the far end, clutching the brooch box like it was a lifeline. This was supposed to be a celebration. But all I could think about was how meticulously I'd planned every moment, only to be met at the door with cold dismissal. Again. Because that's exactly what happened. My father stood at the entrance, like a retired bouncer, shoulders squared, clipboard in hand, wearing the same expression he used when I dented his pickup truck at 16. "Natalie," he said, nodding but not smiling. "Didn't expect you." I smiled tightly. I RSVP'd. His eyes slid to the clipboard. Not on the list. That phrase stung more than I expected. Not because I wasn't listed, but because it was said on purpose. A confirmation of what I already knew. That this wasn't some administrative mix-up. This was designed. "I flew across the country," I said evenly. "I took time off work. I spoke with Mom. She wanted me here." He didn't flinch. "This party was planned for months by people who actually show up." I blinked. "Excuse me." Before he could double down, Lauren emerged from inside her hair, curled into soft waves, wearing a pink dress Mom used to wear to church brunches. "What's going on?" she asked, her eyes cool, scanning me like I was a blemish on her vision board. "She's not on the list," Dad said, turning the clipboard toward her. Lauren sighed like I was a child disrupting dinner. "We talked about this, Natalie. After Thanksgiving, you said some really hurtful things. It didn't seem like you wanted to be involved." "I called Mom," she said. "She was probably just being polite," Lauren cut in. "You know how she is, hates conflict." Behind her, Evan appeared. He looked uncomfortable, eyes darting from me to Lauren to Dad. And that's when I realized he hadn't expected this. Or maybe he had, but not this publicly. I heard whispers. Someone said my name. A distant cousin murmured, "I thought she moved to New York." I stood frozen, gift in hand, unsure what to do next. Until Evan stepped forward. "Can we talk?" he said quietly, gesturing toward the parking lot. I followed him back to my rental car, still stunned. He waited until we were away from the crowd before he spoke. "I wanted to say something earlier, but I didn't want to blow up the party." "Too late for that." "I need to be honest," he said. "Last night during the rehearsal dinner, your dad and Lauren talked about you. About what they'd say if you showed up. Your mom wasn't part of it. In fact, she asked if you were coming. Lauren told her you sent your regrets." "That's a lie," I said. "I know," he said. But Carolyn didn't. She looked hurt, not angry, just confused. That's when something deep inside me shifted. The quiet flame that had kept me going all these years, flickering under layers of rejection, caught fire. "I'm going back in," I said. "Lauren's going to—" "She already did," I said. "Now it's my turn." He looked at me, searching for something. "What do you want me to do?" "Walk in with me," I said, "and introduce me." He nodded slowly, and we started walking. The walk from the parking lot back to the Rivercrest Lodge felt like the longest 90 seconds of my life. But this time, I wasn't trembling. I wasn't begging. I was arriving with my spine straight, my chin high, and Evan by my side. We entered through the garden side door, bypassing the clipboard checkpoint entirely. Inside the room was golden, with late morning sun pouring in through tall windows. Table centerpieces glowed with fresh lilacs and floating candles. A projector played family photos on a loop above the head table. I was in none of them. Evan stepped forward, cleared his throat, and with surprising clarity said, "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Natalie Morganson, Carolyn's daughter, and my VP at AetherTech." Heads turned, utensils froze mid-air. Conversation evaporated. And then, from the center of the room, Mom rose from her chair, her eyes locked on me wide with disbelief, then warming so quickly it made my throat tighten. "You came?" she whispered. "Of course I did," I said, walking toward her. We embraced. It wasn't long, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. Lauren was beside her in an instant, trying to insert herself between us like a page in a closing book. "This is awkward," she said tightly. "I thought we were clear. You lied," I said, not raising my voice, but loud enough to still the room again. "You told Mom I couldn't come. You told Dad to turn me away." "That's not true," Lauren snapped, eyes darting to Evan. "You're just twisting things." "Am I asked. "Or are you finally being seen for the games you've played for years?" Mom looked between us confused. "Lauren, you told me she was too busy." I thought she was," Lauren muttered. "I called you," I said to Mom. "The night I saw the event, you told me to come." My mother looked heartbroken. "I asked if you were coming. You said you'd rearrange things, and then Lauren told me you'd changed your mind." She turned to my father. "Robert, did you really turn her away?" He looked uncomfortable for the first time in memory. "After what she said at Thanksgiving? I thought she didn't want to be here." "You thought or you decided for me?" I asked quietly. The entire room was still watching. "I need a minute," Mom said, stepping away from the table. "All of you, come with me." She ushered the five of us, me, Dad, Lauren, Evan, and Zach, who had finally emerged from somewhere, into the small lounge just off the main hall. The door shut behind us with a weighty click. "I'm tired," Mom said. "Tired of the lies, the assumptions, the rewriting of events. Natalie, I'm sorry, I didn't know." I nodded, holding back tears. "Lauren," she continued, "you've been helping me so much lately, and I'm grateful. But that doesn't give you the right to control who I see." Lauren's mask cracked. "I just wanted one day, one moment that wasn't about her." "This wasn't about me," I said. "It was never supposed to be. But you've spent years painting me as selfish, cold. Just because I left Cedar Falls doesn't mean I stopped caring." Dad spoke next, surprisingly soft. "It's hard for us. You live in a different world now. And sometimes, that makes us feel irrelevant." "That's not an excuse," Mom said firmly. Evan, standing off to the side, finally stepped in. "I've worked with Natalie for almost a year. She's respected, fair, kind. I didn't recognize the person Lauren described. That's why I followed her out. There it was. A voice from the outside, an objective witness. The silence after that felt holy. This was not a resolution, but it was rupture, and ruptures make space for rebuilding." Mom looked at me and said, "Will you stay?" "I'd like to," I said, "if I'm still welcome." "You always were," she said, even when I forgot how to show it. After the confrontation, I stayed. It would have been easier to walk away with a dramatic high note to end the scene in a swell of music and vindication. But real life isn't a scripted finale. It's messy, uneven, and stitched together with small, imperfect choices. Staying was one of them. The rest of the party played out in slow motion. Conversations resumed, though more cautiously. A few extended family members approached me, polite smiles on their faces, asking vague questions like, "How's the West Coast?" or "Still working in computers?" I smiled, nodded, and gave measured answers. I wasn't there to re-educate anyone. I was there to be seen. And I had been. Later that evening, Mom pulled me aside near the buffet table. "Thank you for coming," she said, holding my hand. "And for that brooch, it's just like the one I lost." "I remembered," I said. "You showed it to me once when I was 10. You said it reminded you of Grandma Florence." Her eyes filled with tears. "You always paid attention." She asked if I'd stay the night at the house. I gently declined. "I booked a hotel," I said. "Neutral ground, just for now." She nodded with quiet understanding. Baby steps. That night alone in my room at the Riverfront Inn, I didn't cry. I didn't spiral. I just lay there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan and listening to its steady rhythm. It sounded like change. Monday came fast. Back in San Diego, I hit the ground running. The Singapore expansion had moved into its next phase, and my inbox overflowed with contracts, meeting requests, and timelines. But there was one email that stood out: a department transfer confirmation from HR. Evan Ramirez was moving to product development. I called him that afternoon. "You didn't have to do that," I said. "It felt cleaner," he replied. I didn't want any weirdness at work. "Understandable," I said. "How's Lauren?" He sighed. "We're taking some space." She gave me an ultimatum: her or the job. I picked the job. I winced. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," he said. "You didn't create this dynamic. You just finally held a mirror to it." Our call ended with a strange sense of closure. Whatever had connected us at the party wasn't romantic or dramatic, it was simply human. Two people trying to tell the truth in a room full of narratives. I also scheduled a meeting with Diane, our chief ethics officer. I walked her through everything: my relationship to Evan, the situation with Lauren, the transfer. "We'll document it all," she said. "You've handled this with clarity and integrity." Therapy resumed that week too. Dr. Levin listened patiently, then said, "You stood up for yourself. How did that feel?" "Terrifying," I admitted, "but necessary." "Family systems often cast roles early," she said. "And when someone challenges that casting, it threatens the whole play." "I guess I've finally left the stage," I said. She smiled. "Or maybe you're just rewriting the script." 2 weeks later, Mom called with news her doctors had confirmed early cognitive decline, not Alzheimer's, but a memory disorder that would progress gradually. "I should have told you sooner," she said. "But Lauren," she didn't want to worry you. "From now on," I said gently, "no more middlemen. You tell me directly, always." "I promise," she said. "Actually, I was thinking, could I visit you in San Diego?" The question stopped me cold. In 15 years, neither of my parents had visited. Not once. "Yes," I said, trying not to cry. "Tell me your preferred dates. I'll make it happen." And just like that, the wall wasn't gone. But a door had appeared in it. Sometimes the most profound transformations don't come from grand gestures, but from simply telling the truth out loud in front of the people who need to hear it most. For years, I thought being written out of my own family story was the end. But I was wrong. That rejection became a turning point. A doorway. Since that day at the lodge, my family isn't perfect, but we're more honest, more human. Mom and I talk weekly now, not just about doctor's appointments, but about books, memories, feelings. Zach is more present. Dad is slowly learning how to ask instead of assume. And even Lauren, well, her story's still unfolding. But the door is cracked open. Have you ever had to speak up against the role someone cast you in? Share your story in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, or share it with someone who might need to hear it. You deserve to be the author of your own life, even when it's hard, especially then.